Thanks for stopping by Big Top Gaming. My name's Brian, and I had to burp a little bit.
My name's Ethan, and I don't have to burp.
It's been
Like
4 weeks. 5 weeks.
I don't even know. It feels like a lifetime.
I stopped scrawling the pencil marks in my room saying number of days Ethan hasn't come over.
Yeah, something always just came up.
Yep, it's just the way it goes. But we're back here, and instead of listening to us talk about how we haven't seen each other for a month, let's talk about some Warmachine. We've got a 75-point battle report for you between Grymkin and Retribution. So the pairing that I ended up presenting Ethan with was the Dreamer and the Old Witch 3 in this one at least. The Old Witch 3 list was, it had a Skin and Moans in the battle group along with 4 Crabbits, and then a couple units of Dreadrots, a couple units of Nay Slayers with their UA, and then the Dreadrot Isaiah the Harvester, I think is what he's called. So that was the list that I opted not to play. Instead, we're dropping the Dreamer today in Dark Menagerie. She has Baron Tonguelick, 2 Skin and Moans, a Clockatrice, a Frightmare, 2 Crabbits as a Requisition, a Death Knell, 4 Gremlin Swarms, 4 Gremlin Swarms, 2 of which take up Requisition slots. And then I have a Glimmer Imp, 2 Defiled Archons, a Wastelander, and the Twilight Sisters. So the gist with this list is it kind of plays a little like cute game where it uses a lot of the things in here to boost magic and kind of mess with your opponent's movement a little bit. One of the Arcana that I thought about taking for this list was the Labyrinth, but I ended up pulling off of that plan. But it's just like it's the Dreamer with beasts, and there's a couple odd things in here. When I say odd, I mean the Defiled Archons aren't odd. They're really good for her because now we're looking at getting something like an 11-inch Abyssal Gate, an 11-inch Enfeeble, or is Enfeeble 10 inches total? I feel
like Enfeeble is 10.
You know, I have my War Room right in front of me, so I could just look at it right now and
instead
figure
of
it out.
Speculating.
It is 8 inches, so it would go to 11, but still quite threatening on its own. But the list is really cool and utilizes some of those cool new solos to get some cool work done.
And then this week, I'm jumping back to Retribution at 75 points. And my pairing this week was Falcir.
I want to say Falcir because Falcir seems like, excuse me, sir.
Yeah, I know. I always say things wrong, so I apologize. I'm going to say Falcir for the rest of the thing. In Forges, of all places, I think that's really interesting for her, paired with Thyron and Defenders with basically all the Executioner Wardens. And looking at Brian's list, both my lists were double Tridents. So, like, Old Witch does seem like a good drop, but I figured he wasn't going to drop Old Witch because both of my lists just dunk all over single wound infantry. Like, the Thyron just feats and deletes, and then both my lists have a bunch of covering fire templates, so I went with Falcir just so we could play some weird, like, you've sprung my trap card, and then I've sprung your trap card of Arcana versus bounties. So I'm playing in Forges, and I got 3 Manticores, a Gorgon, double Dawnguard Trident, double Arcanist Mechanics, Elara 1 with a Gorgon. I have the Hermit, double free House Shyeel Arcanist units, and then Lynus and Edrea. Basically, the plan is just use the Manticores. I have full throttle. I can covering fire. I can have all of my jacks, heavies at least, fully loaded with 0 input from Falcir, so that's really cool. She can keep her focus and kind of bully the table. And then just Tridents as a second wave support.
So I ended up winning the roll to go first, and Ethan stuck me on the side with the Burning Earth and, just some clouds. Not really a whole lot of great terrain on my side, other than I've got a nice wall that's in my bottom zone for this is Spread the Net, by the way. I'm sure that many of you know this because we've been living in this steamroller for what seems like 84 years.
It just never ends.
Exactly. So the forest is nice for me the way that it's curved out. It kind of protects that side of the table for me, and there's that obstruction that Ethan's got by the flag that kind of messes with him being able to get over to that side pretty easily if he wants to stay with the flag, but you can see that that's probably going to be an issue for me too, trying to get something onto the flag. But he also has that same thing to contend with the rock that's in the middle of the table on the top side of the table here, because that's my happy place where I can stick solos and hang out. So Dreamer and a bunch of models in our battle group run up. I stick them in. This is where it's going to be a rusty game, folks. I ended up moving all of my stuff and being like, oh yeah, I'm not in threat range of the Trident, but I put Artifice of Deviation up anyways. So I didn't really need to do that, and probably could have been a little bit less condensed with my battle group in the middle there. But, it's a good habit, I guess. The Defiled Archon on the bottom ends up running up to the wall with the Wastelander, and then the next thing is just running up my Crabbits, getting them where they need to be, and my Gremlin Swarms are spread out to get some good Serenity going, and then I'm just setting myself up with the Baron back there and moving on to the next turn.
So going second isn't the end of the world. I would really like to go first just to be able to get Falcir up the table and start applying bounties from bottom of 1 just because her control range extends that far. And I'm just doing the easy stuff first. The bottom Trident rolls up, gets 3 tokens.
That was the second dice roll with our new fancy Big Top Gaming dice.
Yep.
Brian. So clearly they're amazing.
Actually, no, because we were going to roll to go first, and you're like, oh, here, use our new dice. And I rolled a 2 to his 3, and I was like, you son of a bitch.
But then you got rewarded by having 3 power tokens right away.
On turn 1, when I would have just gone, rolled more next turn. So I'm just running up, staying out of just basic charge range on the bottom because the forest is there, and he doesn't have an arc node to start with besides the medium phantasm. I don't have to worry about my heavies getting pulled in down there. And basically, I have a Gorgon on each side, so I have a magical spray just to deal with Gremlin Swarms on each side, and maybe be able to clear my flag and zone, because I feel like those are going to be his key contesting pieces. And then just basically figuring out where do I want Falcir sitting up the table. And she opts just to run turn 1. I was going to put up the Rapid Strike spell, but I don't have an attachment in this list like Silas or somebody for free upkeep, so I figured just camping the extra focus is nice and better and lets me leverage more, because you didn't say it, but you took Ruin.
Yeah, Ruin all fall down, of course, because it's stapled to her forehead, and Sacrifice.
Yep, so I wanted to keep the extra focus on me just so I could maybe bait out Ruin. If I have enough focus to leverage a Force Hammer, because he wants to ruin Cyclone, so I can't bully the table, but if I can put in a position where I can Force Hammer something and maybe bait it out early, and then just basically moving up, staying out of threats, letting him come to me, and I put 1 Manticore where he can scoop it just to start the peace trade.
So going into turn 2, this is where I get to start leveraging some of these really sweet tools, except for being able to pick up the Artifice of Deviation template, because that I feel like that's the common thing for Artifice, is you put it down and then it doesn't come up until the end of the turn.
Yeah, if you're lucky and the models actually move.
Yeah. So I mirage up my Clockatrice here. I'm thinking about how I need to approach the table, and I need to, like Ethan said, I need to take advantage of having turn 1 and being able to fish things out. And in order to do that, I want to try to grab this Manticore. I want to try and do this in a way that makes it so the trouble I put myself in with the Tridents is a little bit more on the minimal side. So here comes the Death Archon, not Death Archon, the Defiled Archon. And we're going to be launching off a Hellfire here. So with his Signs Importance on spells, he hits easy peasy and then rocks it for a ton of damage.
They rolled boxcars.
Yeah, it was harsh. So imagine a world where that was still boosted.
I don't want to.
Yeah, it's real gross. So we do a ton of damage to the Manticore already, and then we zip behind a not Gate Crash, whatever, I forget what the ability's called that lets you jump after you've cast a spell. but the Manicore's hurting quite a bit. But the big thing that I get out of this is the +3 range on all of my spells that target that thing. So he kind of has like this extender, which is one of the reasons why this list doesn't have a Cage Rager in it, is that it's trying to get by without having the Arc Node in here. And the Death Archon, I'm going to say it a million times. The Defiled Archon is going to be the one that helps facilitate these. So I decide to get a little frisky and try to not sacrifice or sacrifice the Dreamer's position right now and have Baron Tonguelick go up there and try and spell Slave and Abyssal Gate out to the Manicore. And I hit, but I don't crack armor, so I don't get to do that. So now it's up to figuring out how the... or getting the Dreamer in a place to be just barely within that 11-inch range, so I can zap it and pull it towards me.
She did go incorporeal this turn, so she could walk through her own models too.
Yeah, she did do the Wraithwalker thing, I think, is that ability.
Yeah, Wraithwalker.
So I do hit, and I do enough damage to... Or no, I hit, and then I don't crack armor at first, but she's got Future Sight, so I boost it to grab it. And it was a little bit of a tight thing, too, because I needed a 3 to do it. And I don't know, when you've got two chances on that, or 33% chance to fail, like that's kind of... It's rough for me, at least.
Yeah, it's scary.
So I did get the Manicore up, so I pull it in, turn it around, and that means that the Clockatrice can walk and punch now with the way that Mirage works on him. So now I'm just trying to make sure that I get everything else where I need it to be. One of the best things to do when you haven't played a game in a month is come back to a really tough faction like Grymkin with brand new models too. Well, brand new to me, but I think we ended up missing just the other Defiled Archon was going. I was trying
the Frightmare shot.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. So I'm just trying to pull a bunch of damage into this without having to put in a heavy first, just to like kind of soften it up. And the Frightmare was part of it, which you couldn't shield guard away, so that was good. I think I had the Twilight Sisters try to put some shots in, and they didn't do a ton of work, but they, it's worth a shot with them, especially with that extended range on their fake Bone Shaker. So the clock goes in, and I have Manifest Destiny up. So that was like kind of the gamble that I had when I wasn't when I could have gone for a second Abyssal Gate if I needed to, but I ended up being able to put Manifest Destiny up, and that allowed me to kill the rest of the Manicore without having to put any extra fury on the clock. And then I ended up making a little Pinata Boy. And it's not like you have a bunch of spells that I need to worry about or worry about to make me want to put this thing here, but he is one of the more tanky pieces that I have for the army. And it gets really annoying to try and deal with, he's just annoying to deal with. He blocks line of sight. He's got Arm 18, and he bulldozes. And then if you're not doing your upkeeps carefully, he'll just burst upkeep removal off you. So this is where I get to be a smart person. I used the bottom Defiled Archon to shoot into the Trident, and then I charged the Wastelander into it, and then I was like, this is where I get to do some cool stuff, but it's still dice off 10. It's not like super great, but it's double damage. It'll be fine. And then I hit, and I'm like, oh, Hermit.
Yeah, I Hermited that instantly. I probably could have saved it, but I didn't want you spiking on 4 dice and just rocking his world.
So far, these big top gaming dice have been spiking like champs. So it could have been real huge, like 24 damage, easy,
easy peasy.
So now I'm just trying to position the rest of my army to where I'm not giving up anything to a Trident that isn't already there. And then just unfortunately the Death Knell kind of got stuck where it was at, but he's kind of covering a lot of other things. I do think that there could have been some better positioning of the Skin and Moans on the top, just because this way if Ethan comes in and takes out that Clockatrice, then I don't really have a way to threaten it back.
Yeah, so I knew throwing up the Manticore would start the peace trade, and I sprung the trap on the Skin and Moans. But then, I was just measuring here, because my plan was to maybe send in Falcir to clear off like whatever killed the Manticore, but now I didn't measure it, but Brian walked into my control area with Dreamer, so I cannot Cyclone from where I am to get to her. Like, if I was an inch back, I could Cyclone into her control and then charge Dreamer. So, like, at this point, I'm like, is it worth me getting a Trident over, TKing myself 2 inches? And we had to look up. It's been a while since I played Tridents. Since the ability is at the end of the movement, I didn't think I could run and then proc the ability to place them out 2 inches because my activation immediately ends. So we played it as I would have had to walk to get within 2 inches and place Falcir. So that means the top Trident would have to basically walk into where all my dudes are standing, get within 2, place her back like a fraction of an inch out of Dreamer's control, and then I'd be able to Cyclone forward, charge Dreamer, who's only camping 2, which I would then feat, and then like smack her around. I was like, no, I'm just gonna try and go for an attrition play. So now I'm trying to see, like, can I send in the Trident on the clock, and then like maybe smite it somewhere. But then like if I smite it, if I roll too far, it's gonna go behind the woods because I can't fit in a good angle. And it's basically just figuring out what can I do this turn to get the clock, but then I got to worry about stutter, I got to worry about sacrifice, and I also need to try and maybe get a ruin out there just to get it out of the way, because the longer the game goes, the more Falcir can bully the table and kind of leverage her extreme threat range.
Yeah, she's kind of got like this what's the word I'm looking for? It's like she builds up momentum for being able to disrupt quite a bit. So the slower the peace trade goes, if you're just giving me thing after small thing after small thing and giving me like a very focused way to do the peace trade, I think it ends up benefiting Falcir in the long run, and is one of the things that kind of makes her not oppressive, but kind of gives her an oppressive feel.
Yeah, she's like a Butcher 3 that actually supports her army.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
And it's worth noting, I forgot to say it, we didn't have the Arcanist units on hand, so I had to proxy them, so I'm using Nemo orbs, little dudes for one unit, and then the other unit, I was like, you know what, I'm going to get Invictors on the table. Yeah, I used 3 Invictors for the other unit.
That's my Retribution collection leaves something to be desired for new stuff other than, I've got, if I ever want to play Sentinels and Tridents, bam, I gotcha. But
so we missed some fun stuff I ended up doing. I opted to walk the Manticore forward. You can't see it because of the proxy base, but I tried to... no, what were those attack rolls? I did something.
Do you think it was anything you tried to do? I think maybe you were trying to use Lynus and Edrea into the Pinata. Yep,
Lynus and Edrea tried to kill the Pinata just to clear it out of the zone, but they missed in melee, and then the other one didn't do damage. So I have a new game plan, and here we're doing it. The Manticore is going to walk forward, get within an inch, going to two-handed throw the Clockatrice at the Pinata. That way, like, I can launch it towards me. I boost to hit, and then I roll Snake Eyes to hit the Pinata, and we had to look up the throw rules. And then after wasting all that time looking it up, which we skipped here, I found out I'm like a fraction of a hair out of range of the Pinata anyway. So, like, I didn't actually miss it. It just
would have never had range to it, so you just kind of threw it in a direction.
Yeah, so it landed there. I boosted damage with the POW 12, and it did okay. So, like, that was pretty much all my focus.
Yep, notably it didn't do anything to, like, a full system, so there was no stuttering.
Yep, so I'm charging with the Gorgon, and I'm opting to combo strike. Auto hits. Now it procs a stutter. And now Brian's got to figure out where he wants it to go.
Yeah, so when I first thought about this, I was like, should I try and block off Falcir, or should I try and play more scenario-related, or more scenario-focused? And my ultimate decision was to time stutter away from Falcir and block up the Trident a little bit more. This way, if Ethan wants to start doing things with that Trident, not only does he have to put shots into the Phantasm, but he also has to try and deal with this Clockatrice somehow. So I feel like it was probably the best decision I could have made at the time, given what I had available.
Yeah, I was hoping for Falcir to come up and finish it off. And it's worth noting, the Gorgon bought an attack into the Pinata, hit, boosted damage, did no damage at dice -6, so now that stupid thing is still alive.
That's like the pocket good best thing about the Dreamer, is that she just like makes these models out of nowhere that your opponent has to deal with, and it's not like a enjoyable experience to have to just be like, oh, my heavy just turned into a stupid ARM 18 5-box thing that I got to deal with.
Yep. And there, I had a Manticore on the bottom, aimed, rolled up one shot, boosted at the Archon behind the wall, hit, and cranked him, left him on 5 boxes.
Yeah, it was real harsh. I thought I'd be okay behind that wall for a while, but I didn't think about the Manticore business.
And there, I had a Gorgon walk up past the building and get in range to spray the Wastelander in the butt. And luckily, he hit, because, like, if that didn't hit, I was going to have to take a free strike with the Trident.
Well, and for what it's worth, too, and we missed this, but the Archon, instead of Hellfiring twice, put down the -2 to hit. I was hoping to maybe keep the Wastelander in that spot for a little while, but really I should have just kept him behind the wall with the Archon still with that stupid Hermit there.
I mean, you had to bait out the charge, because if he stayed behind the wall, my plan was literally just to walk up the dude and spray him anyway.
Yeah.
It's just then I wouldn't be in the rear, so I would need a boosted 12, which isn't, like, the best odds, but it's still something. So Trident goes, punches the clock, smites it 1 whole inch through the water. Now I'm just rolling up my shots. It rolls pretty decent for its number of shots. I think actually it rolled exactly average. Like, I got 1, 2, and 3 on all the shots. So, like, it averaged out. And basically I'm just plopping away. That one got 3 tokens as well, so now he was able to kill. So I'm proud of myself for not killing the Pinata first and then proccing Sacrifice like I always do against Grymkin.
Yep.
And now it is taking a lot of shots to kill this Pinata. Luckily, like, there wasn't really anything else in range, so it was fine.
Yeah, all I did
I had 1 Crabbit in range.
Yeah,
Yep.
all I did was be able to slow down the Trident's positioning, which I guess is kind of good and bad. Mm-hmm. Because I would really like it if your Trident would come out into my brick, but it almost is like with the positioning that we've got right now that turn 1's kind of started all over again.
Yep. I shot a Crabbit. He opted not to shield guard. I boosted it and 1-shot it.
Yeah, right off the table. It
was
was
real nice.
It was like dice +1, right? And then you just like, so more good reasons to proselytize our big top gaming dice.
Yep. So here now I'm charging the Trident. And I'm trying to charge past the wall so he won't get the wall bonus. And now boosting the hit. I hit him. I smite him 4 inches into the Gremlin Swarm. So he just kind of stops. The charge damage kills him. And now I'm just like, okay, rolling up my shots. I'm like, I'm just going to put these into the Skin and Moans. And I'm like, I know this damage is just going to get wasted unless I kill it next turn. So that's why I'm like, do I even shoot these? Then we had to figure out the line on what I could actually shoot, because we kind of just threw down the huge base.
Yeah, but just put it there, and unfortunately with the way that you'd have to position yourself to charge into the Defiled Archon, it ends up shutting down your left side from shooting the
right side.
Right side, sure.
Yeah, but I used up my tokens on the Archon anyway, so I only did 6 points, and then I repo outside of 10. I accidentally repoed the full distance instead of just being bare out of 10. Which was probably a mistake.
I think you were just tired of leaning over the table for like 3 seconds and said, I'm just going to move this thing.
Yeah, because now we're using it on a bigger table, so like there's so much space, and like my back hurts, man. I'm getting old.
Yep.
I haven't played a board game or miniatures in like 5 weeks.
Your trainer is working you hard.
And now I'm just figuring out, here's where I'm like, okay, Falcir can get up within 10. I'm going to go for a Force Hammer. And if I hit him and move him at least an inch, he's out of my threat, so you opt to ruin it. So I baited out ruin, and then I cyclone back.
And I feel like that was an okay. Never mind. I'll talk about it in my turn. So popping Ruin does take, it does make Falcir more threatening over the game, but I really didn't want to watch my Skin and Moans get smited back into some other stuff, and then watch a bunch of other things take damage, and then be out of the game even more so than what he is right now. Like I said, putting the Clockatrice and the Pinata up there really did help keep that Trident where it is, but that doesn't help me because I need you to start coming forward because my threat extension capabilities in this list are not as great as I would like them to be. You know, I still have Abyssal Gate, I still have Mirage, but Mirage doesn't matter anymore because it was on the clock who is no longer with us. And Abyssal Gate only matters when I can actually get the distance to land it, so that Trident, if I were to do something like that, the Dreamer's like dead to rights because Falcir can just Cyclone up, charge, and then be done with it. You know, having to move up and then Abyssal Gate and then have enough transfers left over to try and survive something like Falcir is not something that I think I'm super confident with the Dreamer. So what I really would have liked to have done is try and find a way to get that Trident up a little further. But with ruining the Force Hammer, it just means that, you know, the Skin and Moans can be a little bit more active because I've got this Manticore that's kind of sitting here, and I feel like I might get a little greedy and try and go for the Gorgon as well. So I'm trying to set this up, and the Defiled Archon's kind of like the catalyst to almost this entire list, so losing one of them was really no bueno. But we end up landing a Hellfire on the Gorgon, and from what I recall, we do a decent amount of damage to it.
Yeah, you took out his shield and you did like an extra 5 boxes to the body, so he's not... You didn't cripple anything, but he did not appreciate it.
Yeah, it was not where he wanted to be. So I think I believe I did that twice. Maybe I threw another Hellfire elsewhere.
No, you double Hellfired him.
Okay, yeah. So we
and then Baron went up.
Yeah, the Baron did some stuff. So we get the Abyssal Gate from, I think maybe the Baron didn't do this. I don't know. Maybe he did. I can't remember if it was the Baron or if it was the Dreamer that ended up launching this Abyssal Gate, but we've got the Gorgon spun around, and now I'm thinking this must be the Dreamer doing it, because now what I'm contemplating is, do I manifest Destiny, or do I pull the Manticore in and try and spin it around also, so that I can just get the Skin and Moans in a little bit more safer of a place, so I'm not under threat from the Manticore from the bottom side of the screen. So I opt not to go for the Abyssal Gate. Instead, I go for Manifest Destiny just to make sure that I get all of these heavies. And then I try to take some pot shots with the Twilight Sisters into the Gorgon just to get some extra damage out there. It's one of the fun things about them being in this list is that you get a chance or an opportunity to throw some extra damage out there, but you know, they're not popping heavies or anything like that, but they do chip the paint on the Gorgon a little bit.
Yeah, they do some decent damage to him.
So I believe now I'm just trying to figure out, this was my fun screw you Falcir play, where I thought Parlay was like all the Warcaster or Warlock needed to be within 6 inches, but it's the thing that's punching me needs to be within my 6. So I don't use Parlay on Baron very much, but I think if I've positioned him in a way where you have to like get a little creative with your Trident in order to get to him, and where I'm at, I don't think Falcir can get to a point where she can get on him and take him out, and then make sure that she can start attacking the Dreamer. So I feel like I've got the Dreamer a little bit more on the protected side from melee this turn, and it's just trying to figure out ways to position the rest of the things to make sure that the Trident doesn't come in too far to try and get Baron off the table. So I end up opting to walk an activation back, I think, and then get my Death Knell up so that it can pass corpses off to the Skin and Moans. So now he's fully loaded, swinging POW 19s with armor 19, and that's pretty decent in terms of trying to survive a bunch of ret stuff. So we charge the Manticore and do a pretty decent amount of damage on the first hit, and then my second initial goes into the Gorgon and takes it off the table and makes the Lancer Phantasm. So now I've got another cool tool that I can use to try and jam out that Trident. So now we're swinging back into the Manticore, and we take that off. So we've only spent 3 Fury to do this, and we got 2 models out of it. One of them is my fantastic Pinata. So now I'm just trying to figure out what it is I need to do with the rest of these to just kind of get them into really annoying places and make sure that I can try and stay as safe as I can with the things that are going on. So I thought about trying to bulldoze Falcir out of the zone as something cute, but I can't do that.
Nope, because she's unstoppable.
So unstoppable. It would have been really, really nice to be able to bulldoze that Manticore out of the zone, because that's the only thing that's keeping it safe for Ethan right now, and it would have just been good to get some more scenario pressure on that center zone. But I just end up using the Pinata to block line of sight to the Skin and Moans, so Ethan's got to get rid of that if he wants to try and carry over the Manticore into the middle to start taking him out. And then I use the Lancer Phantasm to kind of block off the Trident, and I'm using this Gremlin Swarm to also block off a landing space. So now Ethan doesn't really have anywhere to take it to try and get into Baron. So with 2 models, I've kind of made it so that Ethan's Trident just can't get there, and that means that Falcir can't put damage onto the Dreamer in melee unless something really ridiculous happens. So I feel pretty comfortable with where I am my turn.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I can still get to him, because I'm like, if I kill the Gremlin Swarm, the Trident charges the Skin and Moans, I can smite it out of the way, and then get a few shots into Baron, and I think that might be enough to put him down, and then Falcir can go. So, like, I go back and forth on this for a little bit on who do I want to kill, or do I want to try and play attrition, because I think I'm in an okay spot. Like, if I take down the Skin and Moans, there's nothing really threatening in the middle. So I feel like it's worth a shot going attrition. So I take the Arcanist unit on the bottom, I allocate a couple focus with them, and I go for a Force Strike and actually hit it with Magic Ability 5. So that was super fun.
Yeah, I was like feeling super good about these Gremlin Swarms being survivable, but you're just cranking 8s like nobody's business.
Yeah, so now the Gorgon doesn't have to aim and spray it. So that frees him up a little bit. And now I'm just trying to figure out how do I clear off the other Gremlin Swarm, and I figure, okay, Lynus and Edrea, they can take a shot. Edrea misses.
Yeah, or she hits, I thought.
And this one, no, I think she missed.
Okay.
Or no, she did.
Yeah,
hit.
She hit. It was the
you
we were figuring out the AoE. And
you were just trying to decide if you wanted to sacrifice.
Yeah, which I ended up doing just because I want to make sure that this bottom Skin and Moan stays around is something that can start dealing with the middle of the table on the bottom, and then that Trident that's kind of hovered off the side of the table right now is still lingering. So I figured if I don't do it now, it means that you're probably just going to go in and try and deal with the Skin and Moans right then and there. And I figured that this is just a way for me to try and get some extra survivability out of him.
Mm-hmm. And Elara goes up, charges the other stupid little dude, kills it. And now I'm just factoring in, like, okay, can this Gorgon aim, spray the Skin and Moans, and clip the Glimmer Imp? Because I'm like, I got a plan now to basically lock out that Skin and Moans out of the game for next turn. So I boost to hit the Glimmer Imp. I don't boost on the Skin and Moans. I hit them both. Boost on the Skin and Moans, so now the Gorgon spray gives them -2 speed. And my master plan this turn is probably Feat with Falcir, give him another token, give him another -2 speed with the token, so now your Skin and Moans is at -4 speed.
Yeah, he's speed 1.
So that's a super sad time for a heavy. So he can still charge 4 inches, threatening 6, but that's like not where he wants to be.
No, and especially since I've played so far back this game, like I haven't been really leveraging my battle groups like full force all at once. I've just been kind of, it has been a game of peace trade so far, and now this Skin and Moans can't participate in that anymore.
So Manticore goes up, clears the free model, and that's what I want a Manticore doing on his activation.
Exactly right.
So Falcir goes up, charges, gets within 10 there. I opt to use the token that's on this Skin and Moan to reroll the damage rolls. I use the token that's on the Archon already for the -3 range on magic in case I don't kill him. And then I feat. I place one on each Skin and Moans, Dreamer, the Twilight Sisters, and the Archon again. And I pop the one on the Archon. I pop the one on the Archon and the Skin and Moans I charge for the +2 damage. So my charge attack unfortunately goes to a bad column. And I don't roll enough because it's dice -6 Weapon Master with the buff, and like I only take out 1 spiral.
And that the -6 is the Death Knell +2 armor and the +3 armor for the corpses.
Yep. So I hit him, so that means I can allocate another token to that bottom Skin and Moans. So I opt to do the feat damage on him now too. So now that bottom Skin and Moans is -2 speed, reroll damage rolls, and the +2/+2. And then the middle one is the +2/+2 and reroll damage rolls. So
yeah, the Skin and Moans drops pretty hard. I was kind of hoping that maybe he'd be able to tank a little bit of that, but with the amputate going on, it gave you just enough damage to where like maybe you would have cost another focus or 2 to get there.
It did take 5 attacks.
Yeah.
So like Falcir normally charging a heavy can kill it in like 3 to 4, but this one like I rolled really bad. So now I opt to Cyclone back, camp 1. And I feel like I'm sitting in a pretty good place because Dreamer's -3 magic because I'm not going for Dreamer this turn. The Twilight Sisters are -3 magic just in case.
Yeah, you never know. It's always those weird things that might catch you off guard if they were to like walk through the woods and start slinging you with spells.
Mm-hmm. And now this Trident's going up, and he's just shooting, boosting damage. He only got 2 tokens this turn, but he cranks it with the feet. And he's just plowing through that poor Skin and Moans that only has 1 corpse.
Yeah, there's lots of damage going in. The Skin and Moans is still around, but to what effect really when he's only speed 1 and can't really get a whole lot done.
And I rolled a lot of shots this turn, and being able to reroll the damage rolls was pretty nice.
Yeah. So we do the Trident does end up taking him out. So now I don't have any more heavies, and a lot of my army is really pigeonholed into not being able to do a whole lot with all of Falcir's tokens.
Mm-hmm. So here I'm opting to move up the Trident to get range to Baron just to enable it for next turn. I know my clock's getting low, but at this point, like I'm clearing pretty much everything I need that threatens Falcir. So now, like I'm gonna start outscoring Brian, and there's not much he can do to stop me. So if I can just clear what's left in the middle, I basically run the middle, and then my plan is to just be able to clear the Gremlin Swarm on the top zone by running my Arcanists and killing it next turn with hopefully, like, I got 3 chances at an 8 to hit for the 4 strike, and just hope that works. And then the Trident's just go in the town, just shooting everybody.
Yeah, you got some... I shield guard a shot from the Defiled Archon into a Crabbit, and the Crabbit didn't take a whole lot of damage, but the Defiled Archon still ends up dropping, so that's another big tool from my kit gone. But again, like he was super bounty tokened up, so he didn't have much to do next turn anyways.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to repo into the zone until I realized there's a Gremlin Swarm, so like I'll just repo the block line to the forest, and then there the Arcanists are running for next turn. My Arcanist is running for next turn, and then end my turn, I score 2 to 1.
So a lot of the tools in my army are really pulled away from me. So I don't have any real heavies to leverage anything anymore. I've got a Frightmare, but it's one shot, and if I try to do anything melee oriented with it, it's just gonna it's not gonna put up any good numbers, right? It's not what it's meant to be doing. Like the Frightmare is not a fighter; he's a spitter. So I decide to just like go ham, and I charge the Twilight Sisters into the Trident. One of them does nothing, but then the other one I think actually did like a couple damage. So
did like 10.
I guess that was something, yeah. Well, it wouldn't have been 10. I think it would have been 5 or something.
She did like 7-ish because she was dice minus 10.
Yeah, she did something. So yeah, it was a number. Next up, I think we ended up trying to take a shot with the Frightmare into the Trident, and I hit, but then you shield guard away because that Manticore is close enough. So now I'm just trying to figure out what it is I'm going to do with myself otherwise. So I decide to charge in my Battle Engine. It's Battle Engine versus Battle Engine. I do hit, and then for damage, I do 1.
You did 2.
2, sorry.
Give him his little stick does enough.
The little mopey cart driver, like he probably would have been better off like taking the Dreadrots out of the back and starting to lob them at the dawn mower. So not much happened in that. I ran the Dreamer over to the flag just to to get her somewhere. That was a very fast turn. I'll fix that later.
So I scored another 2 points because Ryan couldn't contest my flag and his zone. So like I'm up 2. I just need to clear some stuff. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take some shots here with the Arcanists. They move up. First one cranks a 9. Next one goes, cranks an 8.
Yeah, like they don't even need to try.
Now magic ability 5. Like I don't know why people say these are bad. Like they're so good.
They are. Yeah, put them in all your lists.
Yeah, they're free. Might as well. Now I'm just handing out some focus in case I need to clear the middle. But then I believe you start to ask, like, can Elara just contest? And I was like, well, she could have if I had apparated out of the water. But then here we measure. It takes me 2 inches getting out of the water. And then she can run 10.
Yep. Nothing makes you help your opponents win when you've got 3 models left.
Yeah, you just wanted it to be over.
I was like, it's sometimes when you play the game, you're just like, you watch people, right? You understand what you think is gonna like be the catalyst to them winning, and when I look over at like, I didn't contest my zone and I could have, but then they just die anyways, like the Twilight Sisters running around or something to the bottom zone. But like I just wanted to do the fun thing, which was charge them into the Trident and try and punch it up a little bit. But when I was looking at your turn, I was like, if you just get Elara like within 4 inches of this flag, this game's done because of the way that I've, contested things or not contested things. So I was just like, just get her in there, man. Just you didn't apparate her, so you needed to be a little bit more crafty and just move her out like a half inch from the water and then run. But yeah, you got there. It was easy peasy. Overall, I think the game was pretty good. I do think that I probably played a little coy with a lot of my battle group because I think that I don't know, it's weird because like if I present a lot of stuff all at once, maybe your mana cores start unpacking into me. Like I needed to make it so that I could take 1 or 2 things off from you a turn, which I did with the Gorgon and the Manticore, but then after that it was just like that I could not get into Tridents, and those things are what really kind of hurt my army over the long term because there's just so many shots coming from each one of them, and even though I've got decent armor stats with that Death Knell sitting there, I wasn't able to really keep up with the amount of damage they could do to me from a distance, as opposed to just like, oh yeah, I took a Manticore, cool beans, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And like when you look at my pairing and you see I have double Tridents, like I think we talked about pregame, like how much you wanted to drop Old Witch.
Yeah.
Just because like she is so good in the Tridents, but then it's just like both of my lists were you had to drop Dreamer in my opinion.
It was the other things that were in your lists made it so that I couldn't do the Old Witch thing. Like we talked a little bit earlier about how covering fire from Manicores, making sure that the Tridents don't get any charges from any of my real dangerous infantry, like because I think a unit of Nayslayers charging a Curse of Shadows battle engine, they'll just like whip it off the table.
I mean, it goes down to armor 9 because of its shield and curse, and then their power 6s, so dice -3.
Yeah, and then the big guy. Yeah. So the Old Witch list is better to take out Tridents with, but with those covering fire templates, there's never really a chance where I get to go into them, and you've got enough mana cores to be able to position between terrain and where they go with the Tridents to make sure that you've got covering fire for a long time. And that list the Old Witch list doesn't have a way to reach out and touch you otherwise. It's very melee centric. It's all about the charge ranges and getting extra leverage out of Boundless Charge and Malady Men with Desperate Pace. So when my only way of reaching out to your army is through charging it with single wound infantry, it's very difficult for me to try and take the Tridents off the table. And we saw in here, this list was better poised in this particular situation to be able to get the Tridents off, but I never put my army in a position to where you felt like the Tridents needed to come up far enough to get into the game. I always ended up jamming them out, which was fine when I first thought about it, seemed like it was fine at the time. But I feel like I probably could have played the new pieces that I put in further back, like with the Lancers and the putting the Pinata into that other Dawn, or the the Trident, if I would have just maybe slapped those back in a different spot to make sure my battle group stayed really, really healthy, then maybe it would have caused you to move your Tridents a little bit further up, and then I could get a better chance at taking one off.
Because, like, without having a Cage Rager and Dreamer being more towards the top, I knew you couldn't really threaten the bottom one, so that bottom Trident just could basically run around your zone, move up, shoot the Skin and Moans, repo out of its melee threat, and then just repeat.
Yeah, this almost might have been a game where, like, if I would have just abandoned my own zone with that down there, I think that the top Skin and Moans, having two of them over there after having taken out a Manticore and then a Manicore and a Gorgon, then that would have put a lot more pressure on the top side of the table for you, and maybe I would have been able to swing around a little bit differently. But yeah, I do really miss a Cage Rager in here. I know that you can probably like argue that you don't need one in this list because of the Defiled Archons, but I almost feel like you need it because of the Defiled Archons, because the range amplifier that he has on his rules, it doesn't say that you get +3 range if you're the origin of the spell. Like, you just get +3 range to spells that are cast against it. I think it's like Arcane Attractor or something like that. So when I had first looked at it, it seemed like you could bring the Cage Rager, arc the spell through it, and still get that 11-inch range on all of the all the spells from them. So that just feels to me like it would just be beneficial to have one in here anyways.
Yeah, it just layers on the threats and how Dreamer can stay back, especially against a caster like Falcir that plays so far forward and is so aggressive.
Yeah, aggressive and super defensive.
Yeah, like I'm 15-17 with Unstoppable. Like, Unstoppable is such a ridiculously good rule. Like, there was one turn where you're like, well, I can move up and shoot Falcir with Dreamer, and I was like, no, you can't.
Yeah, that was... I don't keep up with the CID stuff, and I don't keep up with Retribution, period. Like, it's not that I don't like the faction, it's just that it never stuck to my ribs. Like, I think you and I are like the polar opposites of Warmachine stuff, where I'm just all about charging all the time forever. I just want to give you a bunch of stuff in my army and see what happens next, whereas you're like the quintessential Retribution circle player, where it's all about being tricksy and giving up little to take a lot.
Yeah, and Falcir really like exemplifies that, and like she's just so versatile. Like, she can play in the other themes, and like Forges was really nice for her. I never cast Full Throttle the whole game because I didn't need to.
Yeah.
But like her kit is just so good.
Well, and that feat is really bonkers. Like, in this game, it kind of really showed like the perfect scenario for it, where first there's not a whole lot in my army for you to have to try and diversify your tokens with, because my threats are very saturated into small packages. But then on top of that, since you were really controlling the tempo of the peace trade, where you were just giving me one thing where I felt really good because I was taking Manticores off the table and I wasn't even paying much attention to losing my heavies, because I know my heavies can do a lot of work with Manifest Destiny and Corpse tokens. But when it was just a couple things going here and there, you really didn't need to use her feat to get any of that action realized on the table. So you were able to do everything you needed to do without her having any real input. And then towards the end of the game, when you did feat, that was the point where I needed my battle group to come alive for me the most, because I was so far down on the peace trade now. Like, not down, like I had 2 Skin and Moans and you only had 1 heavy left over, but that's still enough with that feat to be like, okay, well, you're shut down from this, especially since Tridents are basically just heavies with guns.
Yeah, and like that bottom Skin and Moans, like he was at -4 speed, so like he was effectively out of the game. Like, I didn't need to kill him. I just rolled really good with the Trident and the extra feat damage. Like, and I think that's a good... I've been waiting to bitch about Falcir and Ret players for a while. Like, I will, like...
This is 5 weeks worth of
5 weeks of
pent-up
rage.
Frustration.
Like, she is very good, and I think people... Let's just start out with, is she as good as Week 1 CID? Absolutely, in no world is she as good as Week 1 Sid. She did get nerfed. That said, like, Week 1 CID for her was absolutely fucking ridiculous.
Yeah,
like, you would have had to invent a new tier of caster. Like, S-tier casters are way up here. You can't see me raise my hand.
They're like the Cadillac caster.
And now my hand is even, like, 10 feet higher for what her fucking thing would have had to be if, like, she started with tokens, and if she could pop them on her opponent's turn, if she still had this spell just for arcing out and getting tokens out whenever she felt like it. Like, her tokens are very good and very versatile. And like I applied 3 tokens to one model in a turn. Like it's not that hard when she goes in.
No, it wasn't at all, and it was. I'm not gonna, because we could talk about Defiled Archon CID too. I really wish that they would have kept the boost, but they didn't need it. It still would have been nice. But what happened in Falcir was, like, she was ridiculously bonkers, and it's always weird when you when you kind of get in this mentality of seeing models develop as the process is being created, or as they're being created, right? Where we get this really cool big, like, everyone's excited for this like A-level caster, S-tier caster, and then something happens to knock it down a bit, like Gunbjorn 2 kind of happened, but in a bit more of an extreme fashion. But with Falcir, I think, like, there was probably just a little bit too much of an overreaction of the nerf, because when you look beyond that, what you could have had, and instead what you have at that time, it was actually, like, still probably one of the better casters in the faction.
Yeah, like she's easily top 3, top 5 in the faction. And like people who are saying like, oh, she's unplayable now, like she's a monster. Like she just goes up, triple taps, 4 taps a heavy, cyclones away, and like that's her game plan every turn. I couldn't leverage as much against you because you had Ruin.
Yeah.
But imagine in a world where like, say you said you almost took Pandemonium or Labyrinth, and then, like, as you were deploying, I was like, are you sure you don't want Ruin?
Yeah, it was, the list is kind of, the Arcana was kind of, like, cherry-picked for me from the person who had created the list, so I was like, I'll try it. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, man, you're right, Cyclone is just going to wreck me if I don't play it, or if I don't play Ruin. So I needed to have that to leverage it. But yeah, in a world where, like, this is one of the few Cyclone casters that exists that can actually, like, go in and use it as, like, a yo-yo thing to rock a heavy off the table and then get out of dodge. Like, Sorsha 2 can do it on feet turn-ish. But then, like, Helga can't do anything with that. I mean,
she uses it for her feet, and that's pretty much it.
And then as Azazelo can use Wind Rush, essentially. But I don't think he's peeling heavies off the table anytime soon.
If he feats and puts his whole stack into it. But it's just like with straight Amputate, like against a Warbeast, I auto-kill it in 6 attacks as long as I do 1 point of damage each attack. And with a POW 13 Weapon Master, like, that's not hard. No, it's not. And you have a 7 stack of focus, so with the proper tools, you can just make that happen. Yep. And like when you feat, she's a POW 15 Weapon Master. If I could have squeezed in Silas somehow, but that eats up my Merc slot, I believe, for Forges, and I really wanted Hermit. Like, if she can get a free upkeep for Rapid Strike, now she has 2 initials and 7 bought attacks. Mm-hmm. Like, without the extra free attack, like, she's still in a world of where, like, she'll kill a non-arm buffed Colossal on, like, okay dice. Yeah. But now, like, you throw in that free attack, and it's just like, if you roll well to the columns, I didn't roll here, so it took 5 attacks, including my charge attack, which didn't roll as well at dice -6. But, like, she can just be a monster all game long. And then, like, a lot of the tricks you have for killing these tankier casters, Unstoppable just shuts down. Like, that one rule is ridiculous on a small base caster. Yeah. Like, she can already hide pretty well. Like, I could see that being on, like, a medium or a large base caster that needs it to be survivable. But, like, she bumped up the def 15, and Unstoppable just blanket shutting down. Like, I can't even remember. I got to read it. Yeah, it's stationary, knockdown, and pushes, right? You cannot be pushed, become knocked down, become stationary, be moved by a slam, and never suffers blind and shadowbind. So one rule makes her immune to 6 different effects. Well, and all of those are every single effect that kind of makes it so she has to play a little bit more conservative against some casters, or has to worry about ways to mitigate some of her stats, right? Yeah, like, because def 15 is pretty good for a caster, and arm 17, like, it's not the best stats in the world, but that's pretty dang good. It is. And on top of the whole, like, I really wish I could have fit in, like, a Guardian with her for the guard dog thing or whatever. Yeah, for guard dog. So for +2 def. Now she's def 17. Yeah, and then you can just plop her in wherever you feel like, and as long as he's around, she's really difficult to move. And, like, I could have put her up that one turn and then just pop the Signs Importance or the Star-Crossed ability on anything that can threaten her. Yeah. And, like, you have Manifest Destiny, but now that becomes dicey. Real dicey when you're dropping the highest and the lowest. Your averages get shot way off of, like, predictability. I mean, at that point, you're just back to 2d6. Yeah, but the variance on the spikes is, like,
is where things get wonky. Like sometimes my lowest die might be a 1, so I drop that for Manifest Destiny, but then my highest die for Starcrossed could be a 6, and then everything between would be like a 3 and a 2, so I'm still missing. Like the probability gets really like screwbally when you've got Manifest Destiny stacked up with Starcrossed. It's just so it varies wildly. You can't even because usually when you do Signs Importance or Starcrossed, it's like a plus or minus 2 differential. But when you throw both of them in the mix, there's no telling what's going to happen with those dice.
And that's fair. It's just like, gosh, she's so good.
She is. I think that she's a really, really good caster for Ret. I think the things that have been happening for Ret in the recent years or recent months or whatever you want to call it, time, right? So I think they've kind of been pushing into a little bit further away from what they used to be, which was really glass cannon-y, and they had a lot of like really assassination focused things to where like I don't feel like that's their all-in game plan anymore. The Tridents are a big part of that game plan, but between the changes that have happened with Byron and Falcir and a little bit with Gareth as well, like they just put a lot of force on the table now. Like they seem to be just a really active, like not a. I'm trying to find the right words for it, but they just feel like they have a lot of play in the middle of the table now, where they didn't before.
Yeah, they can be aggressive and just play up the middle of the board. I'd even argue like one of the versatilities of Falcir is like she can play in pretty much any theme in Ret. I mean, I wouldn't play in Legions just because Legions need some help, but like I'm seriously debating putting her in Shadows for like the assassination potential like goes through the roof. Like I think the last few times we played, I talked about Gary One-Shot. I was like, oh, if I cripple and gas your caster, now all these mage hunters can just kill you so easy. Imagine that now where I just have to feat and pick your caster for +2/+2.
You don't even have to get the spell on there.
So now like I just feat, and now it's like, okay, Dreamer, here, take a bunch of Rat 8, Rat 10 with Mark Target from Iris, and POW 12 crossbows to the face.
Yeah, so they can still do the assassination game. It's just not their only game plan. Whereas before, 3-4 years ago, that was kind of like Ret either tried to kill your caster or threw enough house guard at you to make you choke.
Yeah, that was basically their world. And now like Forges has opened up accidentally from the CID changes to the Jax. Like I'm really excited for like Helena Forges.
I've always been
Falcir
excited
Forges.
about her.
Yeah, she's so good, and like I really want her as like my Flame Strange Bedfellow drop, but I feel like Falcir can do it because like this list is almost identical to what I want to run for Helena, but Helena has 4 Manticores.
Yeah,
so I can put 2 Covering Fires on each Trident, but I think 3 is probably enough.
Yeah, I think 3 is enough as well, especially when you consider like the table exists too. So whatever the terrain is looking like at that particular moment in time is going to help you like make sure you can get the 2 Covering Fires where you need it, and then the other one can just be kind of mitigated by blocking off paths to the Trident with terrain.
Yeah, but I like blocking off lanes to the Trident with things that just auto kill low arm single wound infantry, because those things are POW 12 Covering Fires.
But if you're using like an obstruction or a forest to make it so that those infantry can't get in there, then it's essentially the same thing. They're not doing what you want it to do.
I'd count the obstruction, yeah, but the forest, like I'm on a huge base, so you can see me anyway.
Yeah, but then it's still like, I guess, sure. So
I'd literally just be blanket immune, where it's like, okay, do you want to trust a POW 12 damage roll on your arm, 14 infantry?
Well, and there's nothing wrong with playing 4 Manticores. They're just good jacks.
They are real good jacks.
They're like, I almost wonder if they're like one of the best base jacks in the game now. I used to think it was the Juggernaut, just points to output, but I think the Toro kind of took that over as like, if you want to consider that a base jack, but I think the Manticore kind of takes the spot as one of the best base jacks right now.
It's arguably up there. Like it competes with Toro. Like if you're having a discussion for best non-character jack in the game, Manticore is definitely up there with the Toro.
Yeah.
They got real good in the changes.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the battle report. It was fun kind of knocking the rust off. I know that, it probably wasn't the most like nuanced game. Like, I definitely could have played a lot better, but it was good to kind of get back at it, and we look forward to cranking out more of these. So hopefully things have kind of calmed down a little bit to where our schedules are balancing out a little bit better, and we'll be able to do more of these. And I'm sure Ethan's chomping at the bit to play some more Retribution in the near future.
Yeah, but I feel like I gotta take a step back and actually play other stuff now and then.
Yeah. So we'll figure it out. Maybe we'll think of something fun for you to do, something out of the box. We'll get you playing a Signar game or something.
Don't you dare.